New Mexico University before coming here about a year ago. They've done some really amazing stuff. Done research in Panama. They've received CICEV awards to go to conferences at the ESA meeting in Washington, D.C., for example. They've done a lot of news interviews and things like this for their research. And it's, it's been such a pleasure to have both of you here at the center and doing all this amazing work, and really excited to hear about all the butterfly work that you've done in the past. I looked at their CVs today and I was kind of shocked and surprised to see that combined they have 32 publications together, which is remarkable for students that have just finished their master's. It's amazing. So I think we have some amazing, hopefully you guys will stick around to do your PhDs here. That's what we hope. And we're really excited to have you guys, and it's been really a pleasure so far. So thanks for willing to give this talk today. So go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Anisha Sapkota and I'm from Nepal, and I am generally excited with the exploration of biodiversity, and today we are going to present about the butterflies of Nepal, which is a part of my exploration.
Hi everyone, my name is Sajan. I'm also from Nepal, and I'm butterflies. I've been doing research on butterflies since 2017. So I love butterflies of the world, but I originate from Nepal. So my special focus is in butterflies of Nepal.
So we are going to take turns on speaking about butterflies of Nepal. First, I will introduce the geography of Nepal, and he will talk about butterflies of Nepal, and I will talk again about how to travel to Nepal, and we'll go back and forth. So let's start. I hope you will enjoy the presentation. Yeah. Here's Florida. Here's Nepal. The area of Nepal and Florida is relatively equal, and interesting enough, we share same latitude as well. Nepal extends from 26° north to 36° north latitude, and Nepal is really small country. It is in between two giants, China in the north and India on all other sides. Nepal is a part of central Himalayas, and the Himalayas were formed by colliding of the Eurasian tectonic plate and sliding down of the Indian tectonic plate. And the process is still going on, and the average height of the Himalayas are ever rising. So a small country, it stretches 500 miles east to west. If you 500 miles here in the US is just like 7 to 8 hours drive, but in Nepal it will take you like 2 to 3 days to cross the country, because it has very difficult terrain and the roads are very small. Similarly, if you want to cross Nepal from south to north or vice versa, it takes measures about 125 miles on an average. But it is very difficult to travel Nepal from south to north or vice versa because of the difficult terrain, and we have a lot of mountains on the northern part of Nepal. And actually, there is just one road that connects Nepal to Tibet through the center. And that's the only road we can travel. We can choose to travel from south to north. Unlike the popular opinion that Nepal is just mountain, we also have very flat lands like in New Mexico or Texas, but we have a diversity, this is the southern part of Nepal, which is the flat land. The elevation there ranges from 200 to 1,000 feet. And we have tropical climate in those southern part of Nepal. If we go a little bit up, then the hilly part of Nepal comes. We have a lot of hills, we have a lot of lakes, and the climate there is temperate climate. And the elevation ranges from 1,000 to 10,000 feet. And if we go a little bit up, we finally arrive at the Himalayas of Nepal. And the climate, of course, is very cold. It is a tundra climate there. And we have a lot of mountains, and the elevation ranges from 10,000 all the way up to 29,000 and above. So even though we are very small, we have a lot of biodiversity because we have a lot of elevation gradient in such a small latitude. And also Nepal lies in the transition zone between the Palearctic north and the Oriental south. So we get all the diversity from the Palearctic area as well and the Oriental area as well. So here's the Mount Everest. I have never seen my Mount Everest, but I hope to see it. But I have seen other mountain ranges. I come from the southern part of Nepal, which is the tropical part of Nepal. There are a lot of tropical butterflies in my part of Nepal, where I come from. Sajan comes from hilly part of Nepal, which is more temperate, and there are a lot of temperate butterflies from where he
I haven't seen the Everest either.
So we have a lot of biodiversity, and the exploration of biodiversity in Nepal started in early 19th century. And there were researchers like Ramsay, Harvey doing butterfly works or research in Nepal. And when in 20th century, when India was colonized by the British people, some of the British people also came to Nepal to explore butterfly and moths diversity. Here he is Colin Smith. He is a British guy, and he dedicated his whole life on studying the butterflies of Nepal. And he has generated a lot of literatures which we use as a historical data for butterflies of Nepal. And to honor his contribution, Nepal government also provided him citizenship of Nepal recently. Regarding moths of Nepal, there has not been a lot of study, but there was a team of researchers who came from Japan, led by Haruto, and he published 6 volumes of books on moths of Nepal, and that's pretty much every literature we have in this screen on Lepidoptera of Nepal. So more recently, Peter and Pete compiled all the records that Colin Smith had, and they published a book called Catalog of Nepal, and we have all the literatures that you need regarding butterflies of Nepal in this online PDF. And we also contributed to this book. Recently, there are like 6,000 records on INAT, which was very surprising to me because 2 years back when I checked INAT, there were just 1,000, less than 1,000 records, and I think we are improving. So Sajan will talk about the butterfly composition.
Thank you, Anisha. Thanks for the great introduction. I couldn't have introduced the butterflies of Nepal better myself. But yeah, it's pretty much what she said about the history of butterflies and about the current status of butterflies. A lot of research were done by British back in the last century. And recently, there's more new researchers doing research on butterflies of Nepal. And Colin Smith, who is also known as the butterfly granddad of Nepal, because of his voluminous work in butterflies of Nepal, he compiled all of his findings in his 2010 work with 661 species of butterflies. So he basically cataloged the butterflies of Nepal and mapped them in the map of Nepal in various parts of Nepal. And he found out what species are endemic, what species are not. So based on that, Vanderpoel and Smitesek in 2022, they updated everything that after 2010 have been discovered by other researchers. So that has brought the total number of butterflies in Nepal to 692 species. And recently, 2 more new species were discovered by Pete. So it's 694 now. And I think they are working on some more like cryptic species. So it's probably going to increase in the coming years. And out of when I started, there were actually 661 species. So I used to be like, 50 species out of 661 done, 100 species out of 661 done. But by the time I completed 450, I myself had discovered like 20 species new to Nepal. And so I came to this fact that there's a lot of species undiscovered from Nepal, new to science, new to Nepal. So yeah, if we have to divide the butterflies of Nepal into the current extant families of butterflies, there are 7 families of butterflies. We have 6 of them. We don't have the 7th one because the 7th one is Hedalids and it's confined to the New World only. We don't have that. So we have the most species family is the Nymphalidae, followed by some other species families such as Hesperids, Lycaenids, and Perids, Papillanids, and the smallest one is Rhyadinids because we don't have a lot of Rhyadinids in Nepal or even in Asia. It's more like a neotropical group of butterflies. We have only 11 species of Rhyadinids in Nepal. So that's the classification of butterflies of Nepal based on current family organization. So I would like to go through all the families that are found in Nepal and just talk something about some special kind of species in each family. Papillanids, we like to call them swallowtails because they have this really beautiful long tails. Not all of the species have such tails, but the ones that have such tails, they're really beautiful. And this is a really primitive group of swallowtails. They don't really have tails. We call them Apollos. Apollo really is a misnomer because it applies to just one species found in Europe. We don't have that species in Nepal, but whatever species occurs in this genus Parnassius, we call them Apollos. So it's just like a generic common name. We have 8 species of Parnassius in Nepal, and because they're really found in the higher elevations, mostly above 4,000 meters to 5,000 meters, none of us has really seen any of these species. It's really hard to travel to Nepal beyond like 3,000 meters because of the logistics issues. So we haven't seen any of the Apollos in Nepal, but these species are really beautiful, really hard to see, really unique, and they are really good indicators of climate change also because they are found in the higher elevations. In the US, we have like 3 species of Parnassius. I have seen the one in the US, but not in Nepal. And Parnassius hardwicki, it is the lowest occurring species among the Apollos in Nepal. It's found above 2,500 meters, so you don't really have to go to 4,000 meters to see these. But the rest of the other species, they're extremely challenging to see. And because the northern parts of Nepal, there's so many mountains everywhere, it creates a geographic isolation. So there's a lot of subspecies in those areas, and there's also a lot of taxonomic flux occurring in those areas because of all those subspecies and forms. So a lot of subspecies have been described from this group of butterflies. And there's another unique butterfly called Bhutanidis. It's unique to Bhutan, which is close to Nepal or northeast India. And there's these 2 species in this genus Bhutanidis that occur in Bhutan and neighboring parts of northeast India. And we think, all of us Lepidopteris in Nepal, we think that this genus likely occurs in eastern part of Nepal, but nobody has discovered it. And it will be great if we could discover this population in eastern part of Nepal. Papillanidae subfamily is a subfamily of true swallowtails because species here are known to be long tails. But again, not all the species of this group have long tails. It includes some of the most iconic butterflies in the world, such as Troides. We call them bird wings because they're huge. If you see them fly in the sky, you think they are birds. That's why they're called bird wings. And this is the largest butterfly found in Nepal, Troides icus. It's also listed as endangered. There are some other iconic species such as Tinopalpus imperialis right here. It's known as Kayseri Hind. It has 3 magnificent tails in females and 2 tails in males. It's very rare, but I know a place. I've never seen it, but just before I came here to the US, someone told me about this place that if you go there, you are almost guaranteed to see this species in that place. So when I go back to Nepal, I'm definitely going to be there. It's seen in June and July only though. And there's Papilio Krishna, which Colin Smith, the butterfly granddad of Nepal, proposed as the national butterfly of Nepal, but they don't really care about butterflies in Nepal, really in political level. So we don't have any like national butterfly or state butterfly in Nepal. like we have here in the US, state butterflies. We don't have that. Hopefully one day. And this particular genus, Piasa, it's a really fascinating genus because whenever it's raining, whenever it's about to rain, butterflies usually hide under the leaves or under some kind of shade. But Piasa, they like to fly when it's about to rain in the drizzle. So almost all the times I've seen Piasa, I've seen them when it's drizzling. So it's really fun to see Piasa when it's raining. So Piasa in the rain and Papilio in urine, it means that most of the species of Papilio, they like to visit the urine of different animals. So that's the really interesting thing about them. And some other papilio that we have in Nepal are, you might be familiar with this species right here, Papilio demolius, because it occurs in Florida also, unfortunately. And it's known to be the pest of different species of citrus. Along with, there are other 5 species which feed on different species of citrus in larval stage. And in my opinion, and also we have this huge orange orchard in my village back in Nepal with more than 500 trees. And we have never had the problem of these butterflies in our orchard, probably natural enemies and other stuff. But the population could be worse if it's invasive here in Florida or Caribbean countries. Another family of butterflies, my favorite family, is the skippers, Hesperidae, and these majestic butterflies, because people often ignore these butterflies. They are so tiny, but they are so beautiful. This is Coleadinae, which are commonly known as awls, owlets, and alkings. It's mostly restricted to the Old World in the Afrotropics and in the Oriental region. I think in Africa, they're also known as policemen because these butterflies, they like to patrol a lot. They like to chase other butterflies. So because of this behavior, they're also known as policemen in parts of Africa. But in Asia, we call them awls, owlets, and alkings. Sometimes they're also known to be like the oldest lineage of skippers. And they're mostly crepuscular. I've never seen them really fly in the daytime. And because of this, Anisha and I used to extend our surveys to like 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. because that's usually when you see them. And if you're in the right place in the right time during 5 or 6 p.m., you're almost guaranteed to see these. And they usually come to the riparian habitats, sucking moisture from the river banks. Yes. This is a huge, Eudaminae is a huge subfamily in the neotropics. We have like hundreds of species in the neotropics. And there's a lot of species complex also. Like according to recent research, like one species could be 10 species. Now there's a lot of complex in Eudaminae, but it's really easy to identify Eudaminae in Asia, in Nepal, because we just have one species of Eudaminae in Nepal that represents the entire subfamily Lobocla liliana. And it doesn't occur very common. It's pretty rare. And even in Asia, there's just one genus, Lobocla. So this subfamily is pretty depopulated in Asia. Tagiadinae, just the opposite of the earlier one. We don't have a lot of Tagiadinae in the New World, but we have a lot of Tagiadinae in Asia. Previously, it was classified under under Pyrzinae, but recently it's been split. We have 39 species of Tagiadinae in Nepal, including this unique genus Selanorhinus, which is the only genus of skippers that occurs throughout the tropics of the world. The neotropics, the Afrotropics, the Oriental. This is the only genus of skipper. It's pantropical. And just near my house in Nepal, we have like 3 or 4 species of Selanorhinus flying. And in 2019, I came across this nigricans species, which nobody had recorded. And I identified it as nigricans, and it was new to Nepal, and I published it. And I think it pushed my journey further. And since then, I've discovered a lot of new species in Nepal. And there are some other genera, such as Coleadinae, Pseudocoleadinae, Chagiads. Here we call them the snow flats because of this snowy color on the hind wing. And we usually call them flats because how they spread their wings when they are perching. If you're walking through a forest, you can just see them on the trails because they are usually seen sipping from the bird groupings. So you can basically see them on the bird groupings. And if you disturb them, they like to hide themselves under the leaves. You can also find them in the riparian habitats. The other subfamilies of skippers are Pyrzinae and Samundinae. These used to be lumped along with Tagiadinae under Pyrzinae earlier, but Pyrzinae has been split now. So we have only two species of Pyrzinae, two actual species of Pyrzinae occurring in Nepal right now. One is in the lower elevations, and one is found in the higher elevations. This lower elevation one, we call him the grizzled skipper because of this grizzly appearance, but there's another grizzled skipper in Europe also, and there's one more in the New World. So you shouldn't really go by common names. But this is really common in the lower elevations of Nepal. Yeah, it was recently split, but there's this unique skipper called Chamunda. It's pretty easy to remember the name. It wasn't discovered in Nepal for like past 20 or 30 years. And I found out the reason. So one day I was traveling in the East all by myself, and I wasn't getting any lifer butterflies because I like to get lifer butterflies when I'm traveling because I'm spending a lot of time and energy. And when I don't see the lifer butterflies, very boring. So it was like 6 p.m. and I was really sad. And I was just sitting on a stone and like I didn't find any lifer butterfly. And I just looked up, there was a tree and the tree had some little flowers on it. And I saw some like maybe moths or butterflies, some flying just around the flowers. And I had my camera, so I just turned on my flash and took the picture. And it was this like really unique butterfly I've never seen before. So I did some literature review. I didn't have internet back then, so I rushed to the hotel and found out this was Samunda. And nobody had found this in Nepal for last 20 years. Because the next day I went there next day also, and it showed up there exactly at 6 p.m. again. Not before, not like even 30 minutes later. It was there from 6 p.m. to 6:20 p.m. So it had this brief window in the late hours when not a lot of butterflies would like bother staying till that time. So maybe that's why nobody had discovered this butterfly for that long period in Nepal. So there are some really specific crepuscular time-loving skippers in Nepal, which are really hard to see. And it's all about timing, when to go and where to go. And there's this another subfamily Heteropterinae. We have like 3 to 4 species in this group here in the US, but we have only one species in Nepal. It's found above 2,500 meters, and it can be really challenging to see it. This is the largest group of skippers in Nepal and also in the world, I guess. Hesperians, we call them grass skippers in common language. Because they're caterpillars, they like to eat different species of monocots, including poaceae or the grasses and other families of monocots such as palm and other monocots. And because they feed on monocots, the species richness, because monocots are usually more abundant in the lower elevations, the species richness, as you go higher up, it decreases because we don't have a lot of monocots in higher elevations. So it decreases with the elevational gradients. And one thing about this group is because they're extremely hard to identify, a lot of people, professionals as well as citizen scientists, they find them very daunting to identify. And I think the case is similar here in the New World also. A lot of people don't like to identify skippers. So there's certainly tens of undescribed cryptid taxa occurring in Nepal since nobody has really done any research on these skippers, apart from maybe Evans back in his days. But Evans was a huge lumper. He used to like lump different species together, which had visible difference in their genitalia. He had an entire different concept of subspecies. That's why a lot of species are lumped together. And if you do some serious research in this group, in Nepal and even in the entire Indian subcontinent, you are almost guaranteed to find like tens of undescribed species. So right now we are also working on like external morphological identification keys on how to identify the species just based on wing pattern or any other external appearance. So that's what we're working on. The objective is to get the citizen scientists motivated because like Anisha said, a few years back, we didn't have a lot of observations on iNaturalist. But then suddenly after we started publishing our findings, Pete van der Poel and Peter Smetzak, we started publishing our findings and creating these catalogs with identification keys. A lot of people started getting interested on documenting butterflies and not just birds and mammals. So I think creating identification keys for different groups of butterflies is really important, and skippers need very good research on that. The next family of butterflies that we have in Nepal is the Pirids, the whites and the yellows. Starting with Pirine or the whites, we don't really have like pure white butterflies in Nepal like these. What we have this genus called Delias, which radiated from somewhere from Papua New Guinea. So we have like 9 or 10 species of Delias in Nepal, and Delias species, they feed on mistletoes, which are known to be toxic. So they sequester toxin from mistletoes. We have one species here in the US that feeds on mistletoes, at least one, the great purple hair streak. It is also pretty aposematic, right, with all those blue color. So because they're toxic and aposematic, they form a mimicry ring. Like this is Delias and toxic, this is Delias and toxic. This is not toxic, so it's clearly a Bartesian mimicry. And this also is a Bartesian mimicry. And these two, so they form a mimicry ring. So a lot of purines that we have in Nepal, they have this really flashy color of like red and yellow. But yeah, we have some white, pure white species also, such as this, and it's considered to be a pest species of crucifers, such as mustards, cabbage, cauliflowers. I think we have one species here in the US, Peris rape. I'm not in Florida, maybe. But some species can be found in the higher elevations also. And this species, Habomoya glaucid, it is the largest period found in Nepal. It's like 8 to 10 centimeters large in wingspan. And the next subfamily of periods is the Coleadinae, the subfamily of the yellows, because obviously they look pretty yellow. We have species in the genera such as Urema and Coleas. We share this genera with the US also. And Catopsilia, that is equivalent to Phoebis that we have here. Phoebisinae, looks pretty much like that. And they are found, usually found in the lower elevations, and they are found throughout the year. So if you happen to go to Nepal in winter and want to see butterflies, this is pretty much everything you'll see. And because they are found throughout the year, they have distinct dry season forms and wet season forms. Dry season forms are less prominently marked, and wet season forms are more prominently marked. And they can also be found in the residential areas because they like open areas. Yeah, right in it's really small. It's nothing exciting as it gets here in the New World because we have only 11 species. All of the species, they fall under Nemulbinae. Previously, it was under Rhyodinidae also, I think, but recently all of the old world species of the Rhyodinids, they are lumped under the subfamily Nemulbinae. People like to call it Rhyodinid. I know maybe that's correct, but I like to call it Rhyodinid for some reason. I don't know. And previously, they have also been placed under Lycinidae, which is a subfamily we'll be following later. But yeah, it's a distinct family of butterflies. And we don't call them metal marks like we call them here in the New World, metal marks because of the metal-like spots on the underside of the wings. We don't really have any species that have these metallic spots, but we call them punces and judies. So it's an interesting name because punces and judies, they are the characters of like finger puppets. So there's like a male that is called Pons and female that is called Judy, I guess. And when they walk, they have this like brief skittish movement, like just like puppets walking. That's why they're called Ponses and Judys. And one thing that we have just 11 species of butterflies in this family. The other is that just one species is really common. And if you do a survey or just butterfly trip in Nepal, you might just see this species. So your ride in it might just be represented by this single species. So if you do the like diversity indices, Sajan index or Simpson index, the score of riding is going to be very low. Lysinids are really beautiful, especially this fellow right here. I'd like to start with some less popular subfamilies of Lysinids that we have in Nepal and that we don't have here. Curetinae, we call them sunbeams for some reason, I don't know why. We have two species of sunbeams, Cureti species. They are cryptic, very hard to identify from the ventral side, but from the dorsal side, they are pretty distinctive. One has really small band of this orange, the other has a really wide band of orange. And that's pretty much all about them, I guess. The females are white, they're strongly sexually dimorphic. But this other subfamily, Poetinae, we have just one species in Nepal, and just like regular other Lysinids that feeds on vascular plants and caterpillar scales. But one interesting thing about this subfamily Poetinae is previously it used to have this Leptininae under it. I think it's recently split, but Leptininae, they are some of the only butterflies that feed on algae, lichen, and fungi in the caterpillar stage. So previously, I used to think that butterflies are just phytophagus, and I knew there are some species which feed on other insects also in caterpillar stage. We'll be catching up on that later. But I was just completely unaware of this group of butterflies that feed on like algae, lichen, or fungi. But we don't have anything like that in Nepal. We have that in Africa, I think. So yeah, it's an interesting group. So yeah, the carnivorous butterflies I was talking about earlier, Milletinae. So the adults, they themselves are not carnivorous because they just have regular proboscis. They cannot really chew. But the caterpillars, they feed on different homopteran insects such as the aphids. And there's one species right here that feeds on the larvae of specific species of ants called Oecophilus smaragdina or red weaver ants. So these red weaver ants right here, they weave the leaves of different plants together to make the nest. So it's like a basketball-sized nest. And inside the nest, there's an entire colony of ants with a queen and the larvae and pupae and everything. But just one caterpillar of this butterfly right here is enough to consume the entire colony of ant. It just feeds on the larvae. It can just consume the entire colony of that ant. And that's how it survives. And the ants cannot really bite through the caterpillar because the cell, the carapace, is extremely hard. And the grip is also hard, so they cannot flip to consume the softer ventral side. So the butterfly caterpillar eventually just, consumes the entire colony. And this butterfly was not reported, I think just because it's very elusive. This was not reported for the last 40 years. It was initially reported in 1982 by Colin Smith. He recorded it 2 times from east or central part, I think. And then I was able to come across this dead individual after 40 years. So it was pretty fascinating, but here the case is reversed. The ants are feeding on the butterfly. There are some other species which are extremely rare or elusive. They're very hard to see, but when you see them, they can be very locally common. This one right here, it is known as, this butterfly is known as the ape fly because the chrysalis, it looks like the face of an ape, or maybe a bird poop. So because of the shape of the chrysalis, it's known as ape fly, and it feeds on aphids. Some other subfamilies are the Lysinids, the coppers, We also have some coppers here in the US, but we also have this group called Heliophorus, sapphires. And the sapphires can have like different iridescent color on the dorsal side. And we name them commonly according to the color, like this is a golden sapphire, this is a purple sapphire, this is a green sapphire. And we have some Apheninae. It's an Afrotropical subfamily. In Africa, they are called Sigarites, but it's not monophyletic with Spindaces. In Asia, they're called Spindaces, silver lines, because of these silvery lines on the ventral side of the wings. And they have these distinctly long tails that looks like they have two hairs, which is pretty true for other Lycaenids also, but it's more prominent in this group, I guess. Tail part, which one is the head and which one is the tail. Yeah, that's about this. And this one is pretty large, Theclinae. We have a lot of Theclinae here in the New World, especially in the neotropics. We have 93 species of Theclinae. In the New World, we call them hair streaks, but we have different names for Theclinae in Nepal. The royals, imperials, classes, old blues, plus blues, hair streaks. We have hair streaks also, but our hair streaks are pretty different in behavior and in the external morphology also. Like this one is a hair streak right here. We have two hair streaks in the US that look like this. One is a Colorado hair streak found in Colorado, New Mexico. Another is Arizona hair streak found in California and Arizona. Those two hair streaks are more closely related to our hair streaks in Asia. And many of the Theclinae species, they can be very local, locally common to locally rare. Even though this has lesser number of species, this is the most, by far the most abundant group of Lycaenids in Nepal. They can be seen pretty much everywhere. We have 69 species of blues in Nepal. They can occur from the lower elevations to the higher elevations. And our smallest butterfly is this one, Freyeria putli. If you know the butterfly Briphidium in the US, Briphidium exilis, then it's pretty much like that, even in the appearance and even in the size. So that is our smallest butterfly. And the nymphalids, the largest family of butterflies in the world and in Nepal. I would like to start with some of the most popular nymphalids. Like in the US, I know monarchs are really common and popular, not common maybe, but popular because of their aposematic coloration. We have some Denainae also, which look like monarch. They feed on milkweeds, just like monarchs, and they are toxic also, and they are aposematic. But there are some other toxic species also in Denainae which are not aposematic at all. They're cryptic. And there's this really interesting article if you want to read why some of the toxic Denaines, they are aposematic like this, and why some are cryptic. Apparently, it has to do with the avian predation pressure and the aposematism. It has different intensity and different avian predation pressure. So this paper really explains it really well. And there's this one subfamily Kalinaginae. We don't really have a lot of species. This one species was reported recently from Nepal. They're called freaks for some reason. I don't know why. Charaxinae. This one is popular in the New World also. The New World Charaxines are represented by different species. There's one in Florida that's invasive, the feathered prepona, right? Prepona liatus or something. There's some native species also, such as Anaea or the leaf wings, the goat with leaf wing. Our charaxines are known as Razas and Nawabs. Razas and Nawabs, it means kings and prince, you know, the elite noble royal families. So it translates to that, and there's a story behind this, why these butterflies are known as Razas and Nawabs. So these butterflies are really fast and strong flyers, and maybe kings are strong, maybe that's why. But there's another story that they feed on feces and carcasses, And most of the butterflies that we have were named by British people, you know, they like to name butterflies after everything. And because these butterflies feed on feces and carcasses, it was like a satire to the kings in India. They metaphorically like to feed on like poor people, and you know, so maybe that's why there's another theory. I don't know which one is true. And they have, like I said, really strong and rapid flight, and males often like to congregate to consume minerals from riverbanks, or like I said, the rotting feces and carcasses. Saturnines, or the brown butterflies, we call them. Morphine, sometimes it's like treated along with Saturn, but sometimes it's a separate subfamily. But we have 4 species of Morphine, but it's nowhere as flashy, as big as the Morphos in the New World. So we don't really have a great diversity of Morphine, but Saturnines, we have 90 species of Saturnines. We call them bush browns, rings, satyrs, rock browns, because most of them are really brown. So most of the Saturnines that you see in Nepal, they are found in open areas, really brown. We call them rings because of these pupil-like rings on the ventral side of the wings. But there are some other Saturnines also which can be really colorful, like this species right here. This is definitely a Batesian mimicry to one of the Dahlia species I showed earlier, which was toxic. And there are some other species which can show such aposematism, false aposematism. But there's really these dull and drab species that you might just ignore when walking through a trail. And we have this one endemic species of Saturine in Nepal, Tharlasa nepalica. It's found in the higher elevations, like above 3,000 or 4,000 meters. It's really rare, it's really elusive. We don't know the exact distribution of this species yet. And previously, we used to have a lot of endemic species in Nepal, but eventually they were recorded from other neighboring parts also. So right now, we just have 2 endemic species in Nepal. This is one of them. For how long, I don't know. Liminatidinae, it's a subfamily of, like, we have sisters, and basically sisters here in the New World. We have 56 species of liminatidines in Nepal. And we call them by the names of sailors, sergeants, commodores, barons, dukes. Again, these are all the military grade names which were named by British people back in the days. And just one name makes sense to me, the sailor, because liminatidinae, they like to sail, like slowly sailing through the sky, just like this gentle movement. This name makes sense. Others, I really don't know. They are usually found in the riparian habitats. If you just observe butterflies along the riverbanks and forest streams, you can just see them mud puddling like this and basking on the rocks. And we have a really good diversity of these. Heliconinae and Aracinae, previously same subfamily, but recently split, I guess. They're known as longwings here in the New World, like the zebra longwing. We don't have anything that looks like a longwing in Asia. We have 13 species, mostly fritillaries like these fritillaries, and they're found in the higher elevations. There's 1 or 2 species in the lower elevations, but most of them like above 2,000 meters. And Acarinae, they're toxic, like this one and this one right here. They like to feed on passion flowers, which is toxic, and they sequester the toxins from the passion flowers. So we can see in the coloration, the aposematic coloration, that they're really toxic. We don't have a lot of Biblidae in Nepal. We have just 2 species of Biblidae. We have this fancy Biblidae here in the New World, like the crackers and the red rims and everything. We just have these 2 species. We call them castors because they feed on castor trees, and they are likely toxic and because of the coloration. But we have 10 species of Epaturinae, like we have the Hackberry emperors here and Tawny emperors. We have our own emperors, 10 species of emperors. We call them like prince sometimes, and emperors, courtiers, Circe, all these kind of names. And they can get really uncommon. There's one or two species which are easier to see, but rest of the species, they're really hard to see. But yeah, when you see them, you will often find them like mud puddling along the riparian habitats like this. We have two species of Cyristine and Pseudogoline, previously treated as Cyristine only. Two species of Cyristine are known as maps and maplets. We call them dagger wings here in the New World because of these long dagger-like wings. But we don't have this kind of species here. And because of this like cryptic pattern on the wing, we call them maps and maplets. They are found throughout the year, mostly in the lower elevations. And we have three species of Pseudogoline, which can be uncommon depending on the place. And I've seen them almost always in the riparian habitats along the forest streams, more specifically. Nymphalines, we have 20 species of nymphalines represented by genera such as Zoononia, Kalima, Hypolimnas. Our Zoononia, we have 6 species of Zoononia in Nepal, and it's nothing like the Zoononia we have here in the US. They're really hard to see, really cryptic. Ours, literally a 5-year kid can identify Zoononia of Nepal because they're separated based on color. Like one is gray, one is blue, one is yellow, one is brown, one is chocolate. And yeah, it's really easy. For how long, I don't know, maybe somebody will split them. We have this fan favorite species, Kalima inachus, right here. I remember this since when I was like maybe 10 because they look like these dry leaves, but when you approach them, they fly. And because of that, it's called an orange oak leaf. The dorsal side is orange. The ventral side looks like a dry oak leaf. A chestnut leaf. So it's pretty fascinating. We probably have the morning cloak butterfly in eastern Nepal because it's reported from Sikkim, but nobody has found it. And these big butterflies, iconic butterflies with long palps, when they sit on like a dry twig, it looks like it's a dry leaf with this petiole, and this is a leaf. It's pretty fascinating. We have 2 species of that. So that was the butterflies of Nepal, more or less. But now I would like to say something about the taxa we share with the US, species or genera. Starting with the painted lady, it's found everywhere. It's not a surprise. We share this with the US also. Painted ladies are found in the US also. And Lempites boeticus, it's found in Hawaii. It feeds on peas, legumes in Nepal, and probably also in Hawaii. We have this Hypolimnus bicipus, also known as the mimic butterfly. It's been observed in Florida a few times. And we have this Papilio macaon. It has like more than 20 subspecies. It's found in the US also. And we have Vanessa, different species, and we have Urema. We have other genera that also occur in the US, like Colias, Puris, Celastrina. So some of the butterflies look really similar because they come under the similar genera. Okay, that was my part. Now Anisha is going to follow up on how to travel to Nepal and when to travel to Nepal, if you want to travel to Nepal.
Let's see. So it's already 12:55, so I'm going to skim. So if you want to travel to Nepal, you will get on-arrival visa if you file an online registration, and you will land at capital city of Nepal. There is just one international airport, and after you land, you will get on-arrival visa. If it is your first time traveling to Nepal, I would suggest you travel to Sivapuri National Park, which is just few kilometers away from the airport. The next one is Annapurna Conservation Area, which is a beautiful place with a view of mountains and rivers. You can see a lot of temperate butterflies in Annapurna Conservation Area. If you want to see tropical diversity of Nepal, then you should probably go to Chidon National Park, which is my hometown. You will also see elephants and one-horned rhinoceros casually walking through roads in my hometown. And also go to Balda National Park. It also has a lot of tropical biodiversity. If you are like, I want to find new species to Nepal, then you should probably visit to east part of Nepal. You will get a lot of new species to Nepal. If you want to find like new species to science, then you should probably go to the western part of Nepal. Not a lot of researchers have dedicated the time and effort to go to the western part. So if you go there, you will find a lot of undescribed species. So that's where to go and when to go. You should absolutely avoid going to Nepal during the monsoon season because it always rains and there's flood and landslide. But apart from that, you can go to Nepal in any other seasons. I would suggest you go to Nepal during late April to early June, which is the summer season in Nepal. And you can also visit Nepal during late August to November. And I would suggest you visit Nepal during the October time because it is also the festival season in Nepal and you will also get a touch of tradition. Nepal is really cheap as compared to the US. To give you an idea, $1 is 130 Nepali rupees, and you can get a very good meal at a very good restaurant in just $1 or even less. So we have a lot of public transportation in Nepal, so you don't have to worry about renting cars and everything. And if you have $20 per day, it will cover your rent and your fooding and also travel. So we have a lot of diversity, of course, but we also have a lot of threats on our biodiversity because Nepal is a part of Himalayan range and a lot of Himalayan range are facing a lot of crisis due to the climate change. The temperatures are increasing, the glaciers are melting. We have a lot of rainfall during the monsoon season recently. And there's a lot of landslide and flood, which causes habitat destruction. And in the dry season, we have a lot of incidents of forest fire, which breaks its own record every new year. We also have invasive species, and we do not have regulations, just like in Florida or US, to control the invasive species. So biodiversity of Nepal are also affected by those invasive species. Also, we have a pollution problem in some of the cities of Nepal. So yeah, that's about butterflies of Nepal. So this is the first butterfly that Sajan and I discovered, which is new to Nepal. And it has a very cryptic identification key. And after we reported it through research paper, a lot of people started recording the same butterfly from different part of Nepal. And it was really interesting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sajan and Anisha for a really beautiful presentation with lots
Thank
of
you.
photos and videos and such. Questions? We have time for maybe one or two questions here. Just anyone has questions?
Yes, I noticed that you had no photo credits on the photos, so I'm assuming you took all.
Oh,
the
yeah.
butterfly photos?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a bunch of pictures.
Neat.
Pictures.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have a question, but I can't find it somewhere. So I'm not going to ask the question. I'll ask you separately. Other questions on the Zoom?
There are not. Paul had very complimentary things to say, but
Thanks, Paul.
no questions from anybody, at least not yet.
Okay. then- Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just curious, what's the permitting situation like? Like to Nepal, collect?
To collect, it's relatively easy. To export, not at all. There's no way you can like legally bring specimens out of Nepal.
So you could collect them, but you have to deposit them at a.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how.
to collect, you need a permit, but yeah, still you cannot export.
How are the like museums and the collections there, the conditions of those?
Condition not really good. There's not a lot of management like for pests and humidity and everything like we have here. Collection is pretty good for butterflies of Nepal at least, but management is not good and curation is okay, 5 out of 10.
I have one question, actually. I remember. You talked about all the different species. I was interested in, I saw the number of skippers was 150 or so.
Yeah,
To me, that looks very low. And, given the terrain of
Mhm.
Nepal and
yeah.
how complicated it is and stuff, like what diversity do you think is still to be described? In terms
For
of
skippers,
butterflies in general? Skippers.
694 so far, but we might have as many as 750.
Probably true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other?
Questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.